From AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, this is Laughbox, the podcast for laughter and humor professionals. Here's your host, Chip Lutz.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Laughbox, the official podcast of the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor. And today, it's a pretty cool day for me because I got to talk to one of my very good friends, somebody that I've spent actually a lot of time with over the past 5 years, Linda MacNeal. And what I like about Linda is she has got such a diverse background. I mean, here's somebody that, has a master's in Japanese linguistics, taught clowning, worked for Barnum and Bailey, clown college, was a clown professor, ran a computer company, she just, you name it, she's done it. Just such an interesting background. And she's also a self-proclaimed FSP, former serious person. She's not serious anymore, or so I've never known her to be serious. But welcome, Linda, to Laughbox.
Well, thank you very much, Chip.
Awkward silence.
Okay, are we done yet?
Yeah, it's all good. So let's start. If you could tell our listeners a little about who you are, where you hail from, and just so they get an idea who Linda MacNeal is.
Okay. Well, I think that the way I got to where I was by being a loser, actually. I thought I was doing everything right growing up. I went to the right school and I behaved myself, and I went to college and I went to grad school. But the idea in those days, I'm 67, so I went to college in the 60s. And the idea then was you went for an MRS degree. And since I didn't get an MRS degree, I decided to stay in the mix and go to grad school. And it just so happened the only subject that I really could have gotten a master's degree in at that time was Japanese. So I went to the University of Hawaii and failed that also. I got a master's degree, but I didn't get a husband. So then I was stuck. I was 23 and totally clueless. I was not prepared for anything. So I remember thinking that I had to find like a one-stop shop solution for my life. I needed a place to live, a job, someone to feed me, and someone to tell me what to wear. Because after being with the circus, after being in grad school, which was Hawaii, which is where I was wearing just muumuus, and then I come back to New York City, and I had no idea what to. Anyway, I was not socially adept. So I thought maybe someone could tell me what to wear. So there were three options that I came up with. This is 1973 when Nixon was leaving office and all of that. I came up with Club Med. Think about that for a second. Club Med, you wear the uniform and anyway, I applied to teach tennis at Kauai, Hawaii, where there was a Japanese, you had to speak Japanese and French, which I did. And I got in there. So Club Med was a great option. Military, they all definitely tell you everything, right? You would know that, Chip, right? So they would tell me where to go, what to do, what to eat, when to sleep. And I thought that would be a great option. But in those days, it really wasn't female friendly, and I couldn't get a good feel for that. And the other that came up was I happened to be state champion at the time of gymnastics, and I found out from some people there who were other gymnasts that they were auditioning for Ringling Brothers because they have auditions all over the country in those days, and so a lot of people were flying to Los Angeles to audition. And it just seemed like a great idea because you have a place to sleep on the train and you have animals to play with all day and routines and, a job. And it just sounded like a great idea. And I needed a lifestyle. So I auditioned in Los Angeles and they were kind of interested, but I ended up, going to the other coast. Anyway, I ended up auditioning twice and I did get in. They had 5 slots for women in those days. They really weren't that interested in women, but they definitely needed young clowns. So anyway, I did that, and then they partnered me with Penn of Penn and Teller, and Penn was 17 and I was 23, and we didn't. doesn't sound like much in these days, being 6 years apart, but in those days it really was a big difference. And he was so clever even in those days. You know who I'm talking about, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Penn, yeah. Well, Penn, even in those days when he was 17, he was really clever, and he always wanted to do things his way. And the rule there in clowning was that every single move was choreographed, and it was timed and counted. Like, you bent down on the number, on the count of 1, and you got up on the count of 3, and you bent your knee on the count of 4, because slapstick is really choreographed.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted to do it his way, and I never knew what he was going to do. So since they had paired us up because of our size difference, I'm very short and he's very tall, and we just looked funny together, so it worked. But anyway, we didn't like each other, and we both quit. We were just very unhappy. And so he went on to,
because it's so interesting to me that they like sucked all the fun out of clowning because it was all choreographed. That's hilarious.
Well, it's true. It's true. Clowning is very, very. Oh my gosh, everything is very well choreographed. Yep. And that's exactly.
When my kids were small, I always threatened to, send them off to the circus, and here you just did it voluntarily. Your parents must have been like, "Man, why couldn't she have done that when she was young?"
Well, I did run away with the circus, but I didn't get far enough, and you can't really run away from yourself. I mean, I thought I was by joining the circus. I thought that was the most dramatic, drama queen thing I could do to come up with a lifestyle. But no, it's anyway, it didn't work. So I found myself then again without a husband and without a job and without a life in New York City. Yeah. Anyway, people were trying to, girls in those days, we were called girls, were trying to be demure, sort of marriageable, sort of, sweet little things. And I sure didn't fit that style. So
I wasn't going to say
anyway.
That was not going to come out of my mouth. I was not going to say that at all. Because I know you, and I was like, sweet and demure, those aren't words. I mean, sweet maybe, but demure never. But I wasn't going to say it. So I'm glad you did.
Well, really, I don't think our organization, the AATH, is made up of demure people.
No.
If you were demure, you really couldn't share humor. You have to be willing to make a fool of yourself and be out there and extend your boundary. Extend yourself to be in our business.
What was the coolest thing about? I mean, even though they choreographed everything, what was some of the neat things about being with the circus? Deep sigh. Nothing. That's why they went out of business.
Well, no. I think you've really asked the wrong person. I did like the animals, and I really did not see any animals mistreated at all. They were lovely animals, and I did enjoy being with them. But the clowns were really, and you know that we pretty much stayed with our own group of people there, and the clowns were all very sad, lost people. We really were very antisocial, kind of waify, sort of lost people.
The bastard stepchildren of the circus. That's so sad.
Really?
It's a clown clique. You guys have to eat lunch over here at this table.
It's true. We're a bunch of weirdos, honestly. It just, yeah. So I did not really, as I said, it's no matter where you go, there you are, sort of thing. And I brought myself with all of my upset of life not turning out at the wee age of 23, thinking that life was over. So I was the wrong person at the wrong time, and it may have been a wonderful place for other people, but not for me. And anyway, Papa Gayona started hitting on me because I was brought up to the trapeze and going to do some clowning up there, and yeah, it was it was all just as sleazy as you think the circus is. But anyway, it was
interesting.
Yeah.
The sordid details. I like that.
Well,
sounds like a book. I think you have a book in the making there.
Okay.
Behind the tents. The story of Linda MacNeal. I think that would be awesome. All right. I'm sorry for interrupting. Continue.
No. That's it. And then I went to New York, and I eventually ended up with my own computer company, and I became really. I was in preparation for talking to you. I started thinking about my life, and I kind of discovered this before, was the reason I was so successful in the computer business was not because I was smart, but because I was fun. Like, people wanted to be in my classes and they wanted to be around me. And I'm not bragging. I'm getting to a point, which is that after about 15 years, when the computer business changed, I was in New York City, and consultants were able to work with any corporation. It was a very easy come-and-go situation until around 95, when all the contracting changed with consultants, and we needed bonding and all kinds of different things. Anyway, so for 15 years, I would come and go, and I would do conferences for cash managers, and I was having a great life. And the reason they really wanted me, and I got invited to places like Singapore to teach, because people had a great time. And I was trying to figure that out in 1998 or 1999, 2000. I was trying to figure out what it was that I liked about the computer business, because I sure as heck was closing my business. It was very successful, but I was no longer interested. And what I figured out was that I liked to play with people. Like, I really liked the interactions and the fun, and I always made sure that people, when they showed up at the door, something funny was happening, or I actually would be wearing silly hats and silly, dealy boppers. This is in the computer business in the 80s. I mean, wow. I went into business in 1982 when the PC was just coming to fruition. But I didn't put that together, all of this, fun and have a great time. I had policemen in my class. I had them wiping the screens because there was construction in the building. And I said, no, you wipe the screens, and people would laugh about that, like that I was telling people to do that. And I was seating people next to each other, a boy, girl. No, I want you to sit boy, girl, boy, girl. Now, that doesn't sound very funny, but it was out of character for the computer field.
Right.
So there it was, 2000. I had to reinvent myself. And thinking back, the most fun I had in the computer field was putting together my workbooks and including cartoons. Like, I had all these cartoons in the book. And I thought, And I had like 3 cabinets full of funny stuff that I would add to the workbooks. And the fact that I was having so much fun. So anyway, I went to a business analyst, and he figured out that what I really liked was the fun part of it. And then, I don't know, coincidentally or serendipitously, I went running with a girlfriend, and she said, she was a nurse. She says to me, she says, oh, Linda, I have found the greatest profession. I'm quitting nursing. I said, what? I said, well, what are you going into? She said, recreational therapy. And I said, well, what does that mean? She said, I get to play games with adults. Well, I remember to this day, and I can feel it in my chest. We were literally running in Rockefeller Park. I stopped. I couldn't even move. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Playing with adults. Wow, playing games with adults. I tell you, I couldn't move for like 5 minutes. I was talking to her about it. And I created a new life for myself. I said, I'm going to play games with adults. That's what I love to do. Isn't that what we're all doing, really? I mean, in the humor field, we're either verbally playing with people but it's an energetic sort of an exchange. And I swear, it changed that. I stopped dead in my tracks. I mean, literally and figuratively. So I started a games company, a corporate games company for corporate picnics. I created these big games out of rubber chickens. I had 6 sizes of rubber chickens. 6. Did you know that they come in 6 different sizes?
No, I knew that they came in 2 because I have a small one and a large one.
Oh, but, please, you're just an amateur rubber chicken collector there.
I am. I have rubber chicken envy now.
I might bring you some to the conference and show you all the sizes that I have, my private collection. Um, and I
Yeah.
would create these wonderful games and do treasure hunts, and people had the best fun. And it was wonderful to to give people permission to have fun.
Uh-huh.
And it was I was high as a kite. And it was early well, maybe it wasn't early for kids like you, but it was early for me, like around 2001 or two. I went on the newfangled internet and I would quit, ask for different subjects because I was just trying to read up more on this games and this fun thing.
Uh-huh.
And I came across World Laughter Tour, and I asked for laugh. I think I asked for funny and fun and laughter, and I came up with World Laughter Tour, Steve Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, the universe was colluding because the training was in New Jersey. I live in New York, in New Jersey in a few weeks. I swear to God that, how does that happen?
Right.
And went and took it, 2002, became a laughter leader, just discovered there was a whole world of people out there that were, I don't know, into this fun stuff.
Uh-huh.
Took the training, started teaching. I had great entrepreneur skills. I didn't have any trouble finding a way to, find people to laugh with and places to teach and all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
did that for a while, but sort of, there's the big difference, as you know, because you teach laughter. It's less intellectual and more physical and more committing, and you have to really let yourself go to do it.
Right.
And it's back in the early 2000s, it took a lot of energy to have people be willing to let go,
Right.
and do that.
Why do you think that is?
And the literature wasn't out there. People were, there weren't as many, I don't know, maybe it was just that there weren't enough stories about this in everybody's magazines, because it was a much harder sell to talk about laughter. And even when I got into humor, which was just within 2 or 3 years, I had discovered AATH, to talk to people about bringing more enjoyment into the workplace. In 2005 and 6, that was very early. People were not into that yet.
Mm-hmm.
It hadn't come out as a corporate value.
Right. I certainly believe that humor and laughter have become more mainstream. I think, especially in the corporate world, I think, companies like Google and Acuity, companies that value a enjoyable workplace, and they're, in Forbes top 100 places, or best places to work. I mean, Glassdoor's, top 100 places to work. I think that certainly has had an impact on the perception of society on the applications of humor and fun and enjoyment in the workplace. I think that 10 years ago, it wasn't like that, like you were saying. We've come a long way, baby, as far as people understanding how that really leads to engagement, because it really does lead to engagement for people.
Absolutely, but it was a harder sell in the olden days.
The olden days, 2006, the olden days, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and we used Post-its to actually write things on.
Okay, but it was much harder sell in the olden days. And now, I'm actually, Steve Wilson said it recently, maybe even in his interview with you, was it's just too hard to sell the concept anymore, because if you haven't gotten it yet, you're not going to get it.
Yes.
But in those days, I didn't feel that way. I felt that it was my job, because I really believed in the power and the health benefits and all the social lubricant, everything that humor did for people. I believed in it very strongly, but anyway, it was harder to sell. Now it's easy, and if they haven't heard of it, then well, anyway.
It's just
it's very easy to go into corporation now and sell them on any kind of a program that makes people happy.
Right. Well, they see the value. So in your
Yeah,
years
yeah.
of doing this, and you've been doing, I mean, like I said, you've got one of the most diverse backgrounds of anybody I know. And I think it was interesting how you said that in that classroom when you were telling them to wipe the screens or sit boy, girl, that it might not seem that funny, but there's a lot of context that goes with humor, especially in a classroom setting, that, things
Hmm.
might not seem funny on the outside, but when you're in that situation, it is, that's when you go, like when you go to tell that joke and it was a really, really funny experience, but when you explained it to somebody, they're like, "That's not funny." Well, you weren't there. There's a certain amount of
Yeah.
context that goes with that. So I completely understand what you were saying on that. But in your years of doing this, what are some of the best stories you have of fun things that have happened, or people that have come back to you and said, that was like the best thing that I've ever experienced in my life? Do you have some moments like that?
um, I don't know who I stole this from, so excuse me if it was you, but someone used to say, if somebody, you always had to have something when someone would come in late, right? So if somebody came in late to a class, you wanted to do something that would embarrass them, embarrass funny, but anyway. So I picked up this technique where if someone came in late, I would say, "Oh, glad you're here. We just finished sharing our sexual fantasies, and it's your turn." Well, I, something like that, a little more explain. And I did that at a military event with when the minister, the pastor, the pastor
Chaplain.
came in,
Hmm.
the chaplain. Yep, chaplain came in late. That was Arkansas. Chaplain came in late, and I said, "Oh, I'm glad you've arrived. Oh, we were just finishing up our first topic, sharing our fantasies, our sexual fantasies, and it's your turn." So, and everyone turns around, and it was the chaplain, and they all were hysterical, and
Hmm.
I didn't get it. Well, anyway, that was no. In general, I think that I think it's not specific things that I did, but it's that people feel they feel good in my classrooms, and I don't know why I wanted that so much. And I don't know where I got it from or why I modeled it that way. Maybe I was making up for the fact that I was a very average computer person. I wasn't that clever, but I really wanted to teach. I was earnest in teaching, and they knew it.
Hmm.
It's like people don't care what you know as long as they know that you care about them or whatever. There's a really pithy expression about that. And they knew I really cared about them learning, having fun, and relaxing while they were in my classroom.
Right.
Um, Actually, just one more thing about teaching computers. Sounds like a different subject, but teaching computers in the early '80s to executives, which is something that I ended up specializing in. Even in the Trump Corporation, I was teaching all of the executives and the Rockefeller Group and all, because I knew that the smart people that got to the corner office in these corporations got there because they were smart, but not because they could figure out a PC. A PC was really an odd thing.
Oh yeah.
And these people were made to feel really stupid. So most of them ended up with private tutoring from myself or my partner,
Hmm.
and they were able to really get it. But I made sure that people were relaxed. I don't know where I learned this, but later on, the science, of course, has backed this up, is that when people are relaxed, they actually learn
Hmm.
much better. And somewhere figured that out, and that's what made me so successful. So this whole humor field is just making people feel, not making people, but allowing people to feel comfortable having fun doing what they need to do anyway. I
Right.
don't know. It's just sort of,
It's funny you mentioned that computers used to be so hard. They were. I remember doing my teaching internship in my undergrad and teaching introductory computer classes all in DOS, and
oh yeah.
it wasn't any fun. But you try to make it fun. And what's funny is I remember my boss, when she asked me to teach the class, I said, "Well, I'm not a computer guy." She's like, "Well, my computer guys can't teach. You can teach. You got to make
Right.
it fun for them." And so
Yep.
I'm with you on that. That if you can make something a little more enjoyable for people, it takes away that stress. So if you take away that stress, they're going to be a little more receptive, a little bit more open to whatever you're going through, and they're going to they're going to get a little bit quicker. And chances are, since it was enjoyable, they're going to come back again.
I had no trouble getting business for all those years because of that. And it just, you just said something. The whole, there was a lot of fear and upset around the whole PC business. But for some reason, because I had so much trouble learning it because it was illogical, it was all rules, you know, it wasn't logic. As I said, the smartness that got them in the corner office was not the smartness that was going to make them successful in computers.
Right.
Well, for whatever reason, I was able to explain things to them in a way that they were able to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on, people kept saying, you have a way of learning something and then being able to get it into very concrete terms. And I think that's one of the things that has kept me in the humor business so long, is all of the wonderful research that people like Dr. Lee Burke comes up with, and Heidi Hanna and all of that. It has to go from research to what's in it for me, you know,
right.
How do I actually use this? That's very interesting and all of that, but I really pride myself on getting it down to the dog shit level where people can actually do something with it. Like,
right.
If you know that 3 deep breaths are going to do it, how are you going to learn to do 3 deep breaths every single time you need it? There's a big gap between where people know, you know, they learn it in a class to where they actually do it instinctively.
Right.
And I think that's where I sort of specialize. And people like, especially Heidi Hanna, for me, she's been a mecca of brilliancy. She's a way of saying things that I need to hear. And I'm sure other people are too. And Steve Sultan, everybody has, there's so many people in our organization that are brilliant, but for whatever reason, I keep grabbing things. Heidi, like my very first thing well, what was the question? Was I answering a question? I'm sorry.
You were just talking. We were having a conversation. We're talking about education in your basic, premise was that theory is nice, but application is what works. And, you're really good at giving people things that they can apply in their lives to make a difference for themselves and, their circle of influence.
Well, the first, the very first thing, my ex-husband deployed to Iraq in 2006,
mm-hmm.
and I had already been teaching humor. I thought, oh yeah, I'm an expert in this stuff. The second he left, it wasn't very funny. I couldn't apply any of this stuff to myself. Like, it wasn't real. It was all just intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed people in my fellowship. I'm a Unitarian, and I went to the fellowship and I said, you, and you report to my house every Wednesday morning. We're going to have a humor class, humor support group.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time that I learned, I took the Paul McGee book, the humor book, and we went through chapter by chapter, learning different techniques each week and practicing and all of that. And even after that, with all the stuff that you can learn, I still have decided, and to this day, my number one humor technique is to take 3 deep breaths. That's
mm-hmm.
the very first thing I have people do. And people were like, why? Heidi said it's to get you out of your mind into your body, which is a great place to be. If you're in your body, you're actually where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because your mind can go everywhere. Your body is right here. If you actually bring your breathing and all of the other reasons why people breathe to manage their stress. Anyway, so deep breathing is the number one thing. So all of those years, we had the humor group for 6 years, and we always came back to take 3 deep breaths, then inhale and smile on the way out of the 3rd deep breath. And
mm-hmm.
that's a technique. Now, how do you get from knowing that that's good for you to actually doing that?
Well, I think that you kind of hit it on the head that when, your ex-husband deployed, there wasn't anything funny about it, but you forced yourself to get out of that rut. I think a lot of times when we have bad things happen, we sit in that rut and we don't force ourselves to get out of it and do something positive. But once we start forcing ourselves to do something, then I think that's where change occurs.
Yes. The problem, I think, for me for the first 60 years of my life was that I thought that if I thought something, that was a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so this is shitty. That's it. Period. Like, yeah. I didn't have any choice. I didn't know that just because I had a thought that something was terrible, that I had any more power than that. I thought the game was over.
Uh-huh.
Like that was the truth of the matter. So learning all of this stuff and all of this reframing and all of these great ideas that these humor books bring out makes you so much more powerful, gives you tools so that when he deployed, I was like, wait a minute, I know these things exist now because I teach them, but how do you get that to actually happen in real life?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that I had people do things was and I still do it, and you've been in my classes, you've seen it. I have little strips of paper that say breathe, or little strips of paper that say smile, and I planted them everywhere in my life. First, I decided I wanted to practice breathing so that I would breathe 3 times every single time I saw one of these signs, and I put them everywhere. And then I wanted to add smiling to my being. So I did that to add it, and then I combined the two, things like that. Mm-hmm. So putting putting a little piece of paper behind your watch so that every time you look at your watch, it says breathe. That's the kind of training, because going from intellectual to actually getting something to happen differently in your life, you have to develop a new habit. And so much is written about that. So anyway, all of these things are so fascinating, and they're all part of the humor field. And that's what I teach. I teach people how to create new habits. I teach people it's so very, very basic, how you talk to yourself, mindful talking to yourself.
Right. Well, some of our self-talk, even for me, I try to stay a pretty positive person, but I know that a lot of times my self-talk can be really negative. And I like your strategies that you just brought up, little reminders to, do the things that work. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Whether it's, breathing or, remembering to smile, the things that are going to work for you to yank you out of the muck. Mm-hmm. That's a great strategy for people to employ.
Well, for me, it worked because I put them everywhere, and they were, I think that they call them mind hack, mind hack, where you just take your mind and you go, oh, whatever you're thinking about, no, let's smile for a second. And you take it away from where it was and put it in a positive place, and woo. Another one that I've taught myself is, instead of, I used to, carry on when something bad happened. I've now trained myself literally kinesthetically, like in my body. The reaction that I have when something bad happens is I laugh now instead of the oh shit and whatever, because I know I've studied with everybody at AATH how bad that is for your body and all of that. So I now laugh, and I use an expression, this is perfect. So when I was teaching in the humor class, my class, there was this gap, again, that I keep talking about between that's a good idea to use humor and you're in the moment saying, oh shit, and stamping your feet. How do you hook into your humor being? Mm-hmm. You're in the oh shit. How do you get to humor quickly? So one of the people in my group said he needed a humor hook. He called it a hook. He wanted something to hook him back into humor. And I thought of it like a phrase or a mantra, like in yoga, which I also practice. You have a mantra that you can do, or in meditation, to focus your mind. So anyway, we all came up with expressions. Like one person came up with "beam me up, Scotty," and he trained himself that whenever he saw a mess or something happened, he'd "beam me up, Scotty. I'm out of here," or whatever. Right. And mine was "this is perfect." I don't know why, but I now look at every situation that I'm in, and the first thing that comes to mind is, this is perfect. No matter what, I get to the airport, and mine's the only flight that's canceled. You look and you go, this is perfect. And it stops the mental crap. Right. And I trained myself to do that by putting little signs, this is perfect, everywhere, until it started actually coming out of my mouth. That's the way people learn foreign languages. You know, they keep seeing it and saying, you know, and it starts coming out of their mouth when they really need it. So I've actually trained myself in these reflexes now, to laugh when something horrible happens, to say, this is perfect. And these are the things that do keep me healthy. And I do believe I don't suffer from stress even a fraction of what I would have if I hadn't found AATH and found out all of these fabulous ways.
Now let's tether together the fact that you've got an MA in Japanese linguistics and your mind hack phrase of "this is perfect." What is "this is perfect" in Japanese?
Oh my God! Okay, I don't know. I was 25 years old. I was 23 years old, and now I'm 67. Is that a good enough excuse?
I was all excited. He speaks in Japanese.
Here's the Japanese I know. When I came home from college, my first semester learning Japanese, we were learning in those days, I don't know if they still do, they learned dialogues. And so I took the longest sentence from one of my dialogues because it sounded most impressive. And whenever anybody said, oh, say something in Japanese, I would say, "Konomichi o masumite, tsukiatabe o hidari e magate kudasai." And that means go to the end of the road and turn left. So that's it for me. Konomichi o masumite, tsukiatabe o hidari e magate kudasai. And people then would ask me also to speak Hawaiian. And in those days, I knew all of the roads between myself and Ala Moana Shopping Center. So I would just recite the road names, which were many syllables with lovely, lovely vowels in them. You know, pi'ikoi and all this. Anyway, and so that I could fake that too. But nope, do not remember how to say this.
I'll have to try the same thing when somebody, asked me to speak Wisconsinite. I'll just start repeating some of the crazy names of the cities here. I'll just sort of chain them together, like Milwaukee, Pewaukee, Oconomowoc. Yeah, that'll work for me too.
It really impressed my friends.
I really appreciate spending some time with you today. Like I said, I like spending time with you. I think that you're one of the coolest people I know. That well, I do. Your background is so diverse, and you have such a great path to getting where you're at now. That I absolutely love, listening to you, share that stuff. And I think that you're one of the neatest people I know. Because like whenever I was on the board or I was like, hey, can you do this? You always like, I'll do it, and I never had to worry about it because if Linda was on it, it was getting done.
Well, thank you.
Now, if after today people want to find you, where do they go?
I don't think they would want to find this mess of information, but if they do, I'm at humorsolutions.com. That's HUMOR, Humor Solutions, SOLUTIONS.com. Anyway, I teach, I'm still teaching. I love teaching stress management using humor because I do think that is the key to managing stress, which is the key to keeping yourself healthy. And anyway, I share my joyful self with everybody, and I'm very happy to be in AATH where I have like-minded people. Well, and I always have a clown nose with me, which I suggest that everybody don't leave home without a clown nose or I don't know. That's what I do.
Well, and we appreciate it. Well, thanks again for spending some time with me today. I know that people listening will definitely enjoy learning a little bit more about Linda MacNeal and your strategies. I think you gave some great strategies. I love the mind hacks. I love the deep breathing. Everything that you just said to me are things like, oh, these are all things that I can actually do. So I appreciate that because I know some people will get real value from those tips.
Well, thank you. Take care. Have a great day.
I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Good.
This is Laughbox, the podcast for laughter and humor professionals. Laughbox is made possible by a grant from the National Speakers Foundation and is brought to you by AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Find out more at aath.org. Be sure to review Laughbox on iTunes. For show notes and more information about today's conversation, visit laughbox.aath.org.